Okay, here we go. Here we go. Right, here we go. The Rocky and Josh show. Today we're going to do marching up and down the square, right? Unless, of course, you got anything better to
Marching
do.
up and down the square.
Yeah.
Who's in?
Where's
I'd
your
rather go
brand,
home.
man? Where's your brand?
Right, off you go.
Off you go then, right? So branding, and brand we were talking about before.
Branding is the verb.
Branding, and how we take an inside-out approach to brand and branding.
Right, because it's like you hear these big companies like drop millions of dollars on brand.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And it's like, so they contract with an outside agency that is not part of their company. It doesn't hang out, doesn't consult with their company.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. They just like, we need a new brand. So go do that. You know, and to me, it's like that's like the exact wrong way to go about it. You know,
that's the outside-in approach.
Right.
That's exactly it. It's like let's do something externally that will hope it impact things internally, like our sales numbers.
Exactly.
And everything happens the other way around. Yeah, that's why I got into
the way a brand is supposed to work is that you find your core, your purpose, your whatever you want to call it, and your uniqueness.
Yeah, or your manifesto in case of a,
there you go.
There you go.
Exactly.
Quick promo. Yeah.
and then the brand is how you communicate and bring that to the outside world.
Yeah, absolutely. So so for me, I love that, because what it comes down to is that idea of right actions. And I think what the world is trying to do a couple of different things at the same time. And I think brand fits really well into that. But the old rule of brand, I think, doesn't. Or the corporate version of brand doesn't, because corporate has a thing called branding. Maybe that's the difference you're looking at, right? And what the world is wanting is authenticity, right? They want more meaning. They want to make a difference. They want more things. That's the way generally people are moving, and branding goes against that. In fact, a lot of people want to reject anything that has a brand because of that sense that you're trying to get sold something or attach value to something that is all money related, kind of
it's that
idea.
Outside pretty plastic shell that's around the company that obscures what the company is really like, and is just there to put on a good face in front of chaos or something, you know?
Yeah, and they're wrecking brand for all the rest of us, right? Because brand is actually something that's representative of something you gain for the positive actions you're actually taking in the marketplace. That's what, going back to our inaugural podcast we did 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, where we talked about that a little bit. I used the cow example of, you brand a cow so you can differentiate it from your neighbors because they look the same, et cetera, et cetera. And then when someone steals yours, you hang them, right? And word kind of gets around that you hung them, and some people hate it, and some people think that that's wonderful, right? You get both things going on. Some people are like, well, wait a minute, you steal a cow and you die for that? And that doesn't make any sense. Some people are like, oh yeah, kill them. We don't want people stealing cows. Teach them a lesson. And either way, you're establishing a brand from who you are and the actions you've taken in the marketplace. And I think that's the biggest thing that I get excited about in working with companies, is the ability to not have to focus not that external focus on the brand, but get first getting what they're doing right. And it's really difficult because a lot of them say, yeah, but I don't know how to sell that in the marketplace. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It's the difference between internal communications and external communications. You have an internal customer. The internal customer is your employee,
right?
And they need to know what your brand is. And not only that, but they also need to contribute to what your brand is, so they have ownership of it. And you can't possibly put your brand out in the world if your employees don't know about it or don't understand it or haven't bought it. If your internal customer hasn't bought the brand, then how are they supposed to sell it?
No, that's interesting, and that got me. When you said that, what went on to me immediately is I went back into manifesto, and what it made me think of is, oh, wait a second, I never thought of this before, right? Maybe manifesto is a branding exercise. Because a manifesto is a searching, and I break manifesto into people. I have workshops I take them through that go through their beliefs or intentions and their aspirations, and I take those and I put them together and I figure out, okay, here's how we begin the process of uncovering what your manifesto is. And the cool thing about that is that's an attractive thing. That meaning that's the way you attract your best employees, your best partners, your best customers, et cetera, that are going to help you in the marketplace, if you will. And it makes it so much easier to do business because you're doing it from the right place in the first place. But really what you just said was, well, wait a second. If you need to figure out what to do internally and the people need to understand that, well, what is it that attracted them there in the first place? And so maybe if we say, maybe if we replace the term branding, how are you branding your company? Maybe that should be referring to how are you expressing your manifesto? How are you uncovering and expressing and living your manifesto within your organization?
Mm-hmm.
Which gets into a whole different realm, which we should do. Which is a separate podcast kind of thing.
That's a separate podcast. Yeah, I was talking to a guy today at lunch who's worked for the same software company for 15 years.
Yeah.
And the company's 25 years old. So that's really old for a software company, right?
Yeah.
And he was saying, I worked for them for many, many years, and I finally was like, I need to do something different with my life. So at the beginning of this year, so that's almost a year now, I told them I'm quitting, and then I'm taking my 2 weeks notice, so I'd give them 4 weeks because, I do so much in the company that I'll have to train somebody else or write it all down or whatever. He's been there for so long that, there's a lot of stuff that's just in his head. And that was January, and now it's December. So, but what happened is the company turned around and started listening to him because they suddenly realized all the stuff that he was doing in the company. And they're like, oh man, we can't lose this guy,
right.
And they're like, how would you improve this stuff? Because if we're gonna have somebody else do it, we'll need to train them up on the better way to do it. And I know you said there's better ways to do this over the years, so why don't we just redo it with you? And then when we get your replacement, we'll train him on the right way. Well, anyway, all year long, he's now been brought in and bought into the mission of the company. He's totally helped them renovate their entire mission, and so he doesn't want to leave anymore because that was the problem.
Well, and it's also, so he was the brand.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's actually interesting because I've actually worked with a company recently that was in that same boat where they had a person that when you talk to customers about the company, they identified with this person and their work ethic and who they were, right? And that really actually caused some uproar when that person left. It kind of left that kind of hole because it was nowhere to. These were unstated things that person had inside of them, which also shows an immaturity of a company.
Even though it's 25 years old, they didn't.
Even those. They still are just going on, it's in your head. It's a pretty amazing thing, especially with brand, because one of the interesting things about brand is being consistent, and it's hard to do that when it's in your head unless you keep the same people around for a long period of time. And when you do that, you don't notice anything, but you really don't get that idea of what the effect of the brand is until somebody leaves. And the goal. This is kind of what Jobs did when he left and came back in, right? When he left, the company fell apart.
Exactly.
Which means he didn't have a company, right? Even though they
didn't really have a brand.
They didn't really have a brand, right? They did. Yeah. He was the brand, and he wasn't able to take the way that he was and instantiate that inside of a set of systems that could effectively be delivered throughout the organization. And that's what he did when he came back in. He spent his time doing that. And obviously he was incredibly successful.
Yeah.
He understood that. Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting story. There's what it kind of reminds me of also is that you got from a branding perspective. I just had a conversation today myself on a branding exercise where the company had built a great reputation in the marketplace. I'm not going to say who the company was, but it is a very named brand. They then went down and started for whatever reason, they started going out and becoming the low cost bidder on projects, right? If you will. This is a national brand, and the reputation dropped. And in fact, in my mind, they're still kind of down there. But they've actually turned the company around. I didn't know this only in the last couple of years, and they're moving back up to where they were. And they're getting business back again. They're back to who they were originally. instead of chasing the dollar signs down to zero, because whenever you're chasing price competitors, when you start losing a little bit here for whatever random reason, the economy or something happens, you can tend to get in that race to the bottom, right?
Yep.
And then all of a
And
sudden,
that's always a mistake.
always a mistake. Exactly. It's always about customer value.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one too. I'd like to talk about is markets.
And that's the difference between design and a brand too, because like, Apple had design. They had a design. So
Yeah.
they had iMac, right?
Yeah.
It was brilliant design, right? It was
No.
not a brand. It failed. I mean, it succeeded for a while, but ultimately it failed. So it took Jobs actually coming back and building the brand to actually bring them out of that design versus brand. Because again, like we said at the beginning, you can outsource design, and you can't do that with brand.
You can, and it's very interesting because look at the power of Tesla and what they've done, and that's the power of brand, no question about it. He's done a magnificent job. He's done a magnificent job from the beginning.
How do you pre-sale $10 billion worth of trucks that look like that?
Absolutely, absolutely, exactly. You gotta get everybody who loved the DeLorean, and this is tell them the grown up version of it. It's amazing what he's done with that brand. Whereas you look at it, I'm really curious to see how Ford does with his Mach E. Have you seen? Because that's come out almost at the same time, right?
Right.
I'm not hearing anything about it.
But you're only hearing stuff about it because people are comparing it to the Cybertruck.
Probably true. Exactly.
And that's the only reason they've gotten any traction is because they're all like, well, Ford's latest and greatest thing can't even beat this Cybertruck,
Well, so that's an interesting thing too, and I'd love to get your opinion on this because what we're talking about here is brain share and a market share and mind share, right? Brain share, market share. We're going brain share and market share. So those two are really closely connected, right? And so that's what's happening with what Elon has done with the brand is he's captured. In fact, if it didn't look like that, right, would he have captured it? Right? I mean, it's so out there. How can you? It's.
I think the reason
you can't take your eyes off of it. You have to see it.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to go.
And the reason is because the Model Y was such a non-differentiation between the others,
Right.
It's kind of like he's like, oh wait, no one's buying the Y, no one is ordering the Y, it's got to look a lot different.
Well, yeah, but also think about this. It's like the Apple Mac for branding. The idea is that you have to give people, from a branding perspective, you got to give people something that they have to see. So that's what I'm saying. The Cybertruck, everybody has to see it, right? For two reasons. One, I'm going to say, did you see the new Cybertruck? Oh, it's so cool, right? Some people are going to be really into it. And then everybody else is going to be the exact opposite, right? You're going to get. I don't think you're going to get. Isn't that the perfect job of branding? You want people to say yes or no, and you want people to say no to promote the hell out of it. That's what's great about it, right? Oh, did you see? Oh, I hate the new Cybertruck. Have you seen it? No, I haven't. Oh, you got to see this.
Oh, it's an ugly pig, man. I have no idea.
So everybody's.
Why would anybody want that thing?
That you cannot ask for better. That's the perfect thing because you have zero desire to sell to everybody, right?
Exactly.
You have none of that, but you have every desire to have it on everybody's. The first thing that is on their. In fact, the people who love it, they love the fact that people hate it, right? I mean, it creates meaning because, as we've talked about before, you created a difference. You created rain versus sunshine, right? Night versus day, kind of a thing.
And that's the way branding actually functions as marketing.
Yeah.
Is to not just differentiate you from the competition, but to actually go out into the marketplace and find your ideal customer. That the brand itself takes that on as its task. You don't have to it takes no pushing from behind. The brand exists out in the marketplace, and the people who are going to love it immediately gravitate toward it, attach to it, pass it around, and they become the brand ambassadors for that brand, and it lives a life of its own.
So brand has to be bold. In order for
Absolutely.
brand to be successful, it has to be a bold, and which means that you better be doing something worthwhile, right? That you could be bold about and be out there with.
Exactly.
That's hard, man. That's hard because you're going to get arrows, right? You're going to get
Oh
arrows.
yeah.
You're going to get both things going on, and that's not easy. That's not easy.
And it's so hard to control your brand in the marketplace too. I mean,
Right.
places like Facebook, for example, where you can put your brand out there and see how people react to it. They're allowed to put nasty comments on your stuff and give it negative comment and negative votes, and all that kind of stuff. And you can remove that stuff if you're an advertiser, but still, that it's somewhat out of your control.
It's completely out of your control, which is brilliant if you can think about it like from a market. So what do you think of this, right? What you just turned on my mind was the best thing to do would be able to put something out on Facebook, right? And have the people just beat the crap out of your brand, and then use that beating up as actually evidence in your marketing campaign, right? So now your marketing campaign is going, hey, you need to check this out. These kind of people in Facebook all said it was garbage. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, there you are. You coming back? Hello.
Sorry.
No worries. No worries.
Don't know whose connection that was, but
could have been mine, could have been yours, but we blipped for just a second, but we're back. But that's very interesting that I see myself doing something like that, right? Is in other words, the badge of honor, right? I think you're going to love this because look at the people who couldn't stand it, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're threatened by it,
I had one thought leader on Facebook said, if anyone wants to be unfriended by me, go ahead and show me your receipt for your Cybertruck down payment. And he got a whole bunch of them. People were so like, oh, yeah, they're so bought into the brand that they're like throwing it in his face, and he's unfriending them all, and I think it's like, how could you pay for that kind of publicity?
You can't. You can't. That's just absolute 150%. It's just genius. It's just genius. It's well thought through. It's understanding brand at the most fundamental levels, right? That's exactly what it's all about, and it's understanding people. Brand isn't even the way to look at it. It's understanding people. And what they want, and that's really what it's about for. Is what's the reason you're giving this? And I thought about that at some point. Some of the stuff that I was doing before, I've always looked at a couple of things from a branding perspective. When it comes to the customers, is I've always thought about it as what am I giving them that is giving them bragging rights, right? I always love that kind of, and how am I helping to promote who they are as well? Those two kind of things. That's how I think of it in terms of. Is the stuff I'm doing, and is the way I'm doing it, giving him these kinds of abilities? Because that's how I know that I can then begin to get out in the marketplace. I don't know. I don't ask those questions enough, but I think those are really interesting questions to ask. Do the people who buy your products and services, are you giving them bragging rights? Well, if you look at, let's ask that of Alon, right? Oh, I mean, the answer is hell yes.
Yeah. I mean, if it were ubiquitous in the marketplace, if people had heard of you before,
yeah.
Could they put on their About Us page on their company website a Colored Boxes company?
Exactly.
That's how strong that has to be.
Right. So they're actually right. They're promoting it as a they already the benefits they get from promoting that are huge, far outweigh the actual benefits they get from it inside. Right. That's when you know you've been successful. Exactly. Yeah, I love that. That's good. That's good. Well, branding is one of the funnest things, and I think it's also probably the biggest area that that companies that don't have brand can leverage. Right? I think it's and you and I have tapped into this a little bit with a couple different things we've done back and forth. But one of the things, I don't know if you want to get into that or not, but the idea of this is great for companies who have a brand and what to do with it, right? But what if you don't have a brand?
Even better, right? And the answer I have, and so let's get into this a little bit, right, is something around, well, if you don't have brand, then use brand. What do you mean, right? You know what I'm saying, exactly. If you don't have a brand, then use somebody else's. The negative one.
The negative one, or what? Yeah, whatever. You actually doesn't have to necessarily be negative, but you have to. But that's what the idea is. They've got brand, so they and what brand does is it gives people attention, and they've got some actions going on in the marketplace. They've got something resonating
Right.
that's working for them or not
So
working.
so for my company,
Yeah.
drag and drop websites,
Yes.
no one knows who it is.
No one knows who it
It's
is.
got a cool name. It's a catchy name.
It's a
But
great. I love that name.
but I can use the brand of Wix in order to promote my company.
Right.
So
Right.
I can say this is the headline or the subject line that you gave me was, this is why Wix hates us. You know.
Exactly. Oh, why Wix hates us.
Right.
Yes. Why? Yes. Exactly. I love that. Yeah. No, just because, and I'm not sure that would work or not, because you have to have some obviously decent content in it. But the idea is, how do we begin to, there's some issues with that, right? That you have to be cautious of. You have to really have something in there, which you do, by the way. You're a perfect example of what people need to move to, who've experienced Wix, because I've experienced Wix, as you know, right? So I know it very, 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 very well. And you've got tons of features above and beyond them, including speed, and including ease of getting a site up and running within 15 minutes, which is Wix takes a considerable much amount of time more than that. But it's also the fact that you have to get into it and begin to layer in each of the different aspects and get into the into the inner workings of why your company, right? Why Drag and Drop is going to create a brand experience that's better than what Wix is creating,
Right.
right? So
Or has created, actually. Yeah.
has created. Well, that's true. They already have created, exactly.
Because you're
And
going off what they have created. You know.
right. And understanding what kind of two audiences are going to be attracted to that, right? Those who have Wix today, and those who don't have Wix today but haven't dropped for a certain reason, because those are two different animals.
Or people that have in the past at any time used Wix and said this sucks. They're immediately going to be drawn into that. So
I think they will, and I think that Wix actually, among people who have a reputation for websites, right? I think it's a little embarrassing to say that your website's with Wix. That's the one thing I would say. So from a brand perspective, right? And so what you're really doing in that case is, when you're connecting with them, why Wix hates us, right? Is because people could, and then maybe that's one of the primary brand things you're getting across, is because people love what we do. They're proud of being able to say that they're using drag and drop websites, because we have a much more sophisticated platform that's also easier to use than what they have. That doesn't suffer from the speed problems that they have, and it gives you SEO without having to do an add-on and all that kind of stuff. Right.
And there's no free version. I think that hurts everyone's brand. It hurts everyone's reputation that uses Wix, because if they know that you put your business website up with Wix, they'll say he's using a free website builder.
Right, exactly. Your reputation gets right. So you give them brag. That gets in our brag.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
One of my product benefits is that it's not free.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good selling point. That's a good selling point. You can't. Right. Yeah. But so it gets to reputation. That's an interesting thing, just from a marketing perspective, right? Is what you're doing is you're saying, let's get you a sophisticated, especially for people who are trying to build credibility in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. In one way, shape, or form, which most websites are trying to do.
Small businesses, they're going to Wix, they're needing that. Yeah,
exactly.
But you can still get it for less than $20 a month, so it's not like it's totally unfree. It's close to free.
Right, exactly. So it's affordable. Yeah. It's not ridiculous, but yeah. No, I love that. Well, this is good. I like it. I think this is a good session.
Yeah, and that it's the core of a lot of what you and I do together.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
As strategists, as consultants for our clients, and that is, I do branding, I do marketing, so I'm the responsible for doing the outs of stuff, but I can't do that with a company that doesn't understand their insides. It's very difficult to do my job. with companies that don't understand what their internal brand is,
And
and that's what you're all about.
yeah, and I can't help myself, right? And we're both there. That's why it works so well. Is I'm very good at figuring out what they're really trying to be, who they really are, what's gonna resonate. In fact, some of the things I do when we go in, people discover things that they didn't even know that their value, that where they think their value is and what their value really is a discovery process. It's not an external process, which a lot of people think I got to go out and test everything and see what works, and then I'm going to make money doing it. I could completely reverse that around. We go on an internal discovery. Who are you? What are you people doing? How is that coming to market? And then that's where that you and I mesh, because we both we kind of have those. It's kind of those concentric circles crossing over, right? It's that handoff where it's very easy to begin to build something that's going to take off in the marketplace very, very quickly.
Yeah, very Venn diagram of us.
Doing. Yeah. Exactly. That's what's so much fun. Well, I love doing that. There's nothing better than seeing that with people when could they come alive. That's what's so fun about it, right? Is that when they get those overwhelming discoveries that the way they've been looking at business and worrying about it. That's why my headline is when did entrepreneurship become work? Is because it's an adventure. And really it is, but it requires that breaking it down and taking that inside out approach. It requires to understand what it actually, and it's very interesting because when you do that, you put a lot at risk in terms of it feels that way anyway. It's especially initially. It's like, wait a minute, I'm letting go of something that I've had. I've had all these worries about what's going on and how the money's flowing in and what's going on here and then how I'm growing and what ceilings I'm hitting and all these worries. And now
putting out fires.
Putting out fires. You're in that quad run from the '90s. Remember the Covey time. Urgent and important. I'm sitting all over there. I don't know how to get to anything else. And really, but when you take that inside out approach, you completely get rid of his whole quadrant thing. It doesn't make any difference. You take an inside out approach to it. You begin to understand why you're here and what you're doing, and everything begins to make sense. And then you begin to focus on value versus cost, right? In fact, it's one of the presentations I love taking people through is a accounting versus finance presentation, which it really gets into. It begins to understand what side of the equation you're focusing on. Finance is about the future, accounting is about the past, right? And that's where they end up. They go, wow. And when they focus over here and they get the value side, first off, it's a lot of fun, but they always get worried. They get sucked back in, right? But then all of a sudden they realize it starts resonating, and then everything starts to work. It starts to work, right? And then you come in and it's like, oh, you pick it up and throw it out there and
it makes my job so much easier.
It makes everybody's job easier, right? You're making their job a million times.
That's the thing that
they go, that's all.
You were the first person that said to me, "Good," when I said I'm procrastinating.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're like, "Good," and I'm like, "Why is that good?" And you're like, "Because now you know something, you know."
Well,
and it was so true that like the stuff that I was procrastinating on, the stuff that was holding up my business was all stuff that I really don't like to do or don't want to do for some reason. And what do you end up living every day with then? All the stuff you hate doing.
And more of it. It occupies all your time and it stops you from doing anything else.
Exactly.
So
twist that inside out and
exactly. That's why I love it. I have a whole capability on that. Is why procrastination is the best thing that could ever happen to you, right? It's fantastic. It's telling you the way you're going about it isn't working. So you got to rethink how you go about it. I think one of the people I worked for doing this, he was an enterprise sales guy, right? And he was procrastinating on writing a sales proposal. He was like, I cannot write another one of these damn sales proposals. It's going to get rejected. He was sick and tired of the whole thing. Couldn't stand it. And so I looked at it and I worked with him through it. And I go, well, wait a second. Why are you just doing it as a sales proposal? Why aren't you building this as a modular set of capabilities within this company that you can just link together and make it so that you never have to write another one ever again? Huh? And why don't you create a business around doing this and become good at building a framework that anybody can do this whole thing whenever they wanted to. You could actually turn this into if you like doing this, you can turn it into an entire company. But I mean, literally, this is the last one you'd ever have to write again. And I forget, we went through a lot of details on it. Actually, we actually got pretty detailed into it, and he loved it. He loved every second of it. It wasn't. It was something that he could do when he was younger. He couldn't stand doing it over and over again. Was afraid of the rejection, and so there was no motivation to do it. But once you did it that way, it made the whole sales process so much better. And by the way, it turned out that he was a much better person. One of the things he was always regretting was going into that sales proposal on things that were questionable. I think that's what it came down to. He knew when a company was going to buy and it was fine, but when they were questionable and they weren't quite there, right? He had no strategies within his writing technique to move them from a questionable one to a win column, right? From a 0 to a 1, from a -1 to a +1. He had no way to do that. So I was showing him this getting the colored boxes a little bit here, by the way. But I was showing him how to do that, where you can actually begin to, once you get it out in a format like this, now we can play with it. And now we can actually do some things where if they're questionable, you write, it's a completely different proposal with different set of modules in it. And you would love this, right? Because you're, as an outdoor marketing, you can put all kinds of stuff in there. You can put urgency on there. You can use all kinds of ways that you can get people. You can put scarcity in there, right? I know we met, blah 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 blah. Turns out that I came back to the office. We thought we could take 100 customers next year. We could only take 10, but really the customers we're looking for are only this kind of customer. So I'm not sure you're the right one because it's not right for these kind of customers. It's only right for these kind. You know what I'm saying, right?
A little bit of takeaway there, a little bit of scarcity, yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got a home run. You're turning a -1 into a +1 because of the way you wrote the proposal. And then you're also excited because you can't wait to see how they respond to it versus the typical. I mean, I tell you, the sales proposals that were written were.
They're going to reject this again.
Oh, and they were horrible. They were like the most boring corporate speak garbage you'd ever heard in your entire life. Right, where the only thing you're going to do, if I'm looking at that thing, I'm flipping through the pages, right? I'm flipping through it, and I'm going to find the price, and I'm going to say no. And that's all I'm going to do. Yeah, whatever it is. But this was awesome. So it was fun. So anyway, yeah, all good.
So that's what we do is startup. If you've got a business that has been started and is running and has a product it's selling and income, and then you're off to a good start, but all you're doing is putting out fires, doing the really hard stuff, and not seeing the forest through the trees. That's what we do. Is we come in and help you restart up. So
yeah, especially if they've hit their ceiling, right? If they've hit their head on the ceiling, those are the best because there's a lot of opportunity that is hard to see internally, and makes our jobs really easy, and it makes them get the most value quickly because we get them out of pain fast. They get to see the forest through the trees, right? Kind of a thing, and it's awesome.
Cool. All right, man. We'll see you next week on the old podcast.
Sounds good. Talk soon. Bye.
See you.